Right. Good evening, everyone. If you're watching from wherever you are in the world, my name is Ayo. You're welcome to tonight's live episode of Let's Talk. I am waiting for, hey Dio, I'm waiting for Sade. She's going to join me in a moment, all the way from the United States of America. Isn't that cool? Hmm. So tonight we're doing Q&A. We just want to, yeah, Simi's here. How do you do that? Oops. Yeah. I'm adding Sade now. We just want to talk questions. You feel we should be talking about. So, I'm waiting for her to come on. Let me know how you're receiving this, how we're doing, and if there's anything we need to work on. Right. Sade will be here in a moment. There she is. Hey,
How's
how
the
you
audio?
doing? I can hear you.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. Wish I had a bit more light
No,
though.
it's all good.
So
It's all good. I think you look
okay.
good.
Really? Oh,
Yes.
thank you. You're so nice.
I am nice. I am kind of nice. Oh, so what are we doing today?
We're doing questions.
Q&A.
Yeah, Q&A, Q&A, Q&A. Gerard is here. He says, great lighting. Thank you.
Hey, Jared.
Hey, Gerard. So, should we go right ahead?
I think so. Now, for those who are watching this for the first time, if this is the first
Hey,
video
Darlington.
that they get to see, maybe we should introduce ourselves briefly.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. That's cool.
You
Yeah.
go first.
Really? Oh my God, all this feminism. Ah. But anyway, yeah. Sound up a little. Sound up a little, he says. I'm sure they can hear me.
Oh,
That's the mic right there.
I can turn mine up.
I don't know how that works though. Yeah. Right. My name is Ayo. Um, I work as a doctor and a public health specialist, and that gives me insight into medical conditions regarding um, development of children and adults, and trauma and psychological issues, and the brain and how the body responds to physical and mental trauma. Besides, I have done personally extensive research on on many of the subjects in our culture as Nigerian people that are related to emotional development. But Shadi is more of an expert, and she's going to introduce herself right now.
Totally not true. But hi, I'm Sade Simi Waters, and I am a certified trauma and emotional recovery coach. I mostly work with women who have been through abuse and neglect in childhood, as well as narcissistic abuse or marital abuse in adulthood. So this would cover sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional and psychological abuse, spiritual abuse, financial abuse, for women. So this is my area of expertise, both personal experience and training, is to walk people through the steps they need to recover from that abuse, and learn life skills that were missing along the way because of those experiences.
Great. And when Shadi and I were talking recently, we told ourselves, hey, Tese, we told ourselves that yes, sexual abuse has been trending recently, but sexual abuse is just one of many ways in which we all need to develop emotionally and be more sensitive to ourselves and to one another. And we
Right.
hope that as this show develops, we are able to talk about other things that affect every one of us, whether or not we have been through abuse or not. We all need to grow and be better people. And
Right.
we want to make this applicable generally. Now, exciting news. We've done 2 episodes before now, and so far we have almost 900 views. So we'd like to thank all of you, yeah, for participating and ask you to stay tuned to what we do here every week, and also to our YouTube channel, which is going to be up, where you can go get these videos uh, when we are not live. And also, we're going to create audio MP3 versions, which you can use for podcasts or sharing in your groups. You
Right.
know,
And save your
um,
data.
and save your data and your yeah, and your bandwidth also. Right. And some of you may feel that what we're doing in the live public session doesn't cater to your private and confidential needs. For that, we're ready to help you. Okay, Teresa is saying that the sound is really poor.
Oh, really?
All right. Teresa, can you let me know more about how you feel? Is it the way I'm talking, or is it that the audio volume is low?
And then is there anyone else experiencing that?
Experiencing that
If
also. If
everyone
you
is
are listening to
experiencing that,
us,
yeah.
let us know what your audio. Okay, Gerard says he hears us very well. So maybe Teresa, you have a problem with your own reception.
Yeah,
But let
check the
us know
network or
anyway.
something. Yeah.
So Sade and I will provide private confidential counseling for you away from this public group. Just inbox us or DM us
Absolutely.
what you want to talk about. That said, today I have a box. This is my box. I'm going to open my box now. Ta-da! It's full of questions and exciting things that people have been telling us since we did the first 2 episodes. We're going to try to go through a few of them. We won't be talking much, just telling stories and being real. All right? Right. Shadi, what do you want to start with?
I, since I haven't seen the questions, I think I'd like to say we can dive right in to the questions.
Dive right
Or,
in. Dio
yeah,
says, I can hear you clearly. Thanks, Dio.
thank you.
Toyin says, sound is not great. She can barely hear.
Oh,
So it's
really?
interesting. Some people can hear us, some people can't. I begin to suspect it has to do with bandwidth and how that breaks down the little bits of information that are traveling. Am I right or right? You're the expert. Yeah.
We'll
You're
have to
always
see.
the expert.
Yeah, and then we can edit this
All
down
right.
to an MP3 and share that. So that would help.
Definitely. Darlington says volume is good. Terse says audio is poor. We should turn up the volume a little bit. Interesting. Different experiences everywhere. Okay. Let's see. Terse, tell me, is it Ayo's audio or Sade's audio or both? I'd like to hear from you. And let me see if I can do something about that right now. That's the loudest volume. Terse, let me know more precisely, mine or hers. I'm going to go straight to some questions we have so that we can. I'm looking at the clock. Yeah. Let me start from here. We got Gail in our second episode, I think it was. Our friend Gail says something about parenting, and parenting is a major point for. Jared says we're clear for emotional development because everything starts in the home as a child. So Gail was saying that things are changing, and this is more like a comment, and that parents like us or like her are learning and changing the way they talk and have hard conversations. That's great, Gail. That's something all parents need to do.
Right.
And then Splendor says, oh, what we're saying is so true, and it's important that we have this conversation with kids.
True.
And Splendor says children have what she calls emotional banks that need deposits by their parents.
That's true.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. Parenting. Shadi, what do you think?
Oh my goodness. Parenting is huge. And I mean, one can have the theory, So I know one of the most eye opening courses I took when I was in college doing psychology, because I actually went back to school for psychology. I took the human development over the lifespan. And it talked about how people develop at every stage of life. And I'm telling you, that material was so eye-opening. So many things about myself that I didn't understand when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, when I was in my 20s, just became clear. So that alone can change so much, just that education on what the human lifespan looks like. So if you know what your child needs, then most parents want to give their children what they need. For those who have made mistakes, are making mistakes, our parents who made mistakes, it was because they didn't know. It wasn't because some people do set out. Some people have personality disorders. But most parents set out to do the best for their kids, but there's just no education on what's required For instance, I didn't realize that the terrible twos are actually a precursor to the teenage years.
Huh.
The child attempts to individuate, which is separate themselves from the parent, twice in their developmental years, during what
Yeah.
we call the terrible twos, which, guess what most of us try to do during the terrible twos? We try
What?
to correct the kid. No, don't tell
Huh.
me no. So the child has finally realized that, oh, mommy is there and I am here. We're not the same person. So the
Mm.
child is trying to then establish who they are. And most parents were taught, you better discipline that child or they're going to grow up to be a rebel. You better, it doesn't mean that you don't give them boundaries, but you need to give them loving boundaries. So
Yeah.
the terrible twos are an attempt for the child to become their own person. Same thing in the teenage years. But parents
Yeah.
don't have this information. I didn't have that information when my children were two. Thankfully, it was information that I have now that they're teenagers. So I'm a better parent
Yeah.
now that they're
Yeah.
teenagers than I was then. So yes, there's so much that's needed for parenting. Just the basic education of psychology, how the psyche works, not just the biological needs of food, shelter, water, education, but
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
emotional needs of children. That education can change so much. Then on top of
Yeah.
that, how to connect with your child, how to fill their love tanks. Oh my God,
Yeah.
we're so far
Yeah.
behind.
So you're saying that in addition to all the natural gifts that come with parenting, that parents could do better if they were more educated about the
Yes,
technical aspect of parenting. Wow, that's
absolutely,
you. You
absolutely.
know what I'm going to do, Sade? Um, a friend of ours, Tony, sent me a story, and it's very heartbreaking if you hear it. I'm going to be sharing tiny excerpts from her story. It's about the issue of parenting and what happens when someone comes at the work of parenting without preparation. It's a real life story from Lagos, Nigeria. It's a story of a girl, or a lady now. She's now grown up, she's about 40. She grew up in Lagos and she was raped over and over again by two brothers who lived opposite their house in Lagos. It was a very fine estate where everybody trusts everybody and everybody's middle class. And I'm sharing this because of the reaction of her mother. To not all mothers are like this, but many mothers are like this. And I'm not going to judge. I'm just going to share excerpts and let you guys tell us in the comments what your reactions are. Like I said, I should say PG warning also. This is heartbreaking. Welcome to all the people who are watching us: Shola, Professor Austin, Wasim, Kenny, I see you, and all the others. Thanks for joining us. Let me read a little bit of excerpt from this story. It started from the age of 5-year-old girl. So begin to ask yourself what she was wearing and what she was doing in the wrong place at the wrong time. But statistics show that most child sex abuse happens between the ages of 3 and 8 years old.
Right.
Ask yourself, is there a 3 to 8 year old child in my house right now who is not telling me something they should be telling me, and why not? But let me tell you what this girl experienced with her own mother. So her mother sent her to go to the house opposite. The woman living opposite is her mother's close friend and their neighbor. Mommy says, go over there and give that woman this message. So little 5-year-old girl walks across the street. She also has her own best friend in the house, so she expects to be able to say hi to her best friend. When she gets there, her best friend is not at home, but her best friend's older brother is home. He's about 16. He opens the door and she goes in and delivers the message to the neighbor woman. So on her way out, she doesn't notice it, but 16-year-old senior brother of neighbor is following. So just before she gets downstairs, past the stairs to exit that flat or so, he grabs her and pulls her underneath the staircase, and that's where he rapes her. Um, uh, she says, I don't remember anything except the voice of, she mentions his name, telling me not to shout as he pulls down my pants and rapes me. He was just about 16 years old. I remember crying so hard and a lot of pain, 5-year-old girl. When he finished, he said to me, you must not tell anybody. If you tell anybody, they are going to throw you away. He said this in Yoruba, and the expression is, Won ma ju enu. Now, he said that because he knew her mom. Her mom is a school teacher and a so-called no-nonsense parent who doesn't spare wrongdoing. And her mom commonly used to say, I brought you into this world, and I have no problem taking you out of it. And her mom used to beat her to discipline her. Right. So when this boy said this to her, he knew that that was what the child would understand based on how she was raised. So here I stop and insert my own ideas, which are actually questions to you watching. Why do many parents delight themselves with the idea, Tokumbo, that they are disciplinarians. What does that mean? Most of this thing we call discipline is just emotional and physical abuse. A child's primary need from you as a parent is love and mentorship in a communicative way. Mentor this child. They will not be children forever. And your so-called discipline is something that is inborn for any human being as long as you are functioning. Oh my God. Sorry. I was trying to say hi to Michael. Michael is here. Hey, Michael. So your child will develop discipline as a normal functional human being, but you can just help them to do it in a safe space. But let me read on excerpts from what happened to this 5-year-old child.
Well, so I think just from, I would say let's not go any deeper into the story just because of triggers for those who have experienced this. I can imagine that would be very difficult to listen to more details of what happened. But maybe if you skip over the act to maybe the parents'
Okay,
response.
let me skip over the act and say the parents' response. When the girl got into the house, she was crying. But the first thing that happened when she got in the house was that she received a slap from her mother. And her mother said, "Where have you been all this time? The neighbor has already phoned me to say that you delivered the message. Why didn't you come home on time?" So if there was any chance in the world that this child was about to tell mommy, something happened to me, it was gone.
Yeah.
She says later that when she was grown, now she's an adult, she's about 40, that she did discuss this with her mom. And she said, "Mommy, why didn't you, how come you don't know what I was going through?" And mommy, you know what her mom said? Her mom said, "Why didn't you say something after I was beating you?"
Ouch. Oh my goodness.
Then the lady now asked her mom, this is her adult self talking. She says, "Mommy, okay, if you're in my shoes, would you have said something?" And then she said her mother looked away from her and was quiet.
Yeah, because
so for me again,
the empathy is not there. Empathy is a skill, and that our culture doesn't necessarily cultivate widespread. Of course, there are some people who do have it, families that have it. But on a wide scale, it's not cultivated as being a needed skill or a valued skill. If anything, it's seen as something that's going to make you a target.
And again, what I find dangerous is how we in our generation model the way we are parented. And half of the things we saw were not ideal. For instance, the idea that a parent is perfect and can make no mistakes. Otherwise, why can't you apologize to your child? That moment of that conversation was an ideal opportunity for that mother to apologize to her child and say, "I did wrong." But we are not raised as maybe African or Nigerian parents to tell our kids that we're wrong. It's not the way forward, I think.
Well, so I guess just to have compassion on the parent as well as the child. I know our culture has a lot of challenging things in it, but here's where, in order to get to the root of the matter, you have to, so let's take the mother. The mother was raised by her mother, who was raised by her mother. And if at any point there hasn't been a parent who stepped in, someone who got an awareness or an education or an experience that changed it, that mother had no way of doing anything different. So what happens with, chances are that mother herself experienced domestic violence. If it's the generation I'm thinking of, chances are she experienced domestic violence, chances are she experienced sexual abuse herself. So if you think about that and what she had to do to deal with it, part of what she would have had to do to deal with it was what the psychologists call splitting. She would have had to split that part of herself off as though it didn't exist, as though that never happened to her, in order to survive psychologically, pull herself up by her bootstraps, go to school, get an education, get married, have her kid, and raise her kids in a reasonably functional way. So when she had to do that, the part of herself that could relate to her daughter no longer exists for her unless she goes back and retrieves that part of herself as part of a recovery process, integrates it with her current self so that she can accept her daughter. So you can imagine in the moment that her daughter told her that she was probably triggered, she was probably angry with herself. She probably regretted her entire existence. And the best she could do at that moment was just turn away. And interestingly, I know a story similar to that where an adult, she was in her 30s, disclosed to her mother more recently, and the mother was silent, got up, and walked up to her room and closed the door.
Wow.
That she couldn't handle it because she was never
Yeah.
equipped to handle it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
psychologically could not handle it.
Yeah.
So if you think about those parents, it's to think of them with compassion, not
Okay.
blame. If they could do better, they would have done better.
All right.
And literally, our generation is making our own mistakes.
Yeah, we are.
So
And yeah,
let's not be too harsh.
one thing I'm scared of seeing is repetitions in my generation of things that we ought to have learned and overcome. And I think this
Yes,
is the reason you and I are doing this because we want to help break generational cycles.
yes,
And
absolutely.
it has to be done actively. We can't hope it breaks. We can't pray it breaks. We have to
Yes,
learn and do things.
correct,
Right?
correct. Yeah, yeah. So, but then to go back to the victim in the story, I mean, basically she was re-traumatized
Uh-huh.
right at that moment.
Yeah.
That's literally the worst thing that could happen to her. You know, there's just so much shame. That was an act of abandonment. So there's the abandonment by the mother in that moment. There
Uh-huh.
was the punishment.
Yeah.
So it's someone like someone. So when something bad happened, the child was made to feel it was her fault, and this is where lifelong depression comes from. You know, there's the lifelong
Oh,
depression that can result from that, suicidal thoughts that can
yeah.
result from that because your entire existence can get boiled down to I can't do anything right. This pain is never going to
Yeah.
go away, and this pain is my fault.
Yeah. And now that you mentioned the emotion of depression, I'm going to go on to some other questions and comments made after our last show, we touch on what you just said.
Okay.
So, for instance, out of the box again, I have a comment from Gail. She says that depression is not the same as sadness. That if you are sad, you can cheer up, but if you are depressed, it stays. And yeah, she's clinically correct. Then Temi Dio talks about another emotion, shame, which seems to be cultural to us, as Nigerian people. Um, he says he knows many people who are struggling with self-esteem, confidence, and shame. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like Daya is right, and I thank you, Daya, for pointing it out. And if you are listening to us today and you feel like you just suddenly realize that this throws light on you, you struggle with shame, feel free to send us a DM or talk to Sade and I in inbox so we can help you through that self-realization. Um, she basically makes
Okay.
the transition from emotions. I know you missed me there. Splendor makes the transition from emotional issues to church issues. And she says, oh, I was abused, and in church they shamed me, and my soul was crushed. And to a point, I lost faith and I lost trust in church. Let's talk religion, Shadi.
Oh
What do
my
you think about
God.
how religion handles emotional problems and abuse? Back in the box.
You know what I would love to hear?
Yeah.
I would love to hear stories from the people who had a positive response from the church when they disclosed. I don't want to be
Okay.
unfair to the church. I'm a Christian. I go to church.
Okay.
I'm going to church tonight.
Okay. Ooh.
But I want to have a balanced view of how the church responds. Currently, in the United States, I know of some churches that do respond appropriately, but the
Right.
majority don't. In Nigeria, and this is a call, if you have a church that has responded appropriately, it's, to be fair, that hasn't responded appropriately to sexual abuse disclosures or sexual abuse scandals within the church, please let us know so that we can point out the positive as well. Until I start hearing those stories, though, I'm going to say all I've heard are just the worst stories. I've even just today, I was in a coaching session and heard a story of a rape attempt on a student by her pastor. And this is not all the other stories that I heard before.
Yeah.
These are not
Yeah.
all the stories that we know. This was a brand new story to me that was told to me today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and then when she disclosed or attempted to disclose, she was thrown out. So, what's the,
Wow.
I've not heard any positive stories,
Yeah.
I've just heard
Yeah.
the worst.
Hey, Tineke, and the points I wanted to make is what you said now, that the church and families, should do more about protecting the victim instead of protecting the image.
Yeah.
And Gerard puts a comment. He says, pastors are like humans too.
Well, yes,
Yeah,
but the thing
yeah,
about pastors is they have more to protect than the regular human, and that's causing them to make mistakes. So I've heard fa- stories in families that are different. Some families respond appropriately, even Nigerian families. Some families
okay,
respond negatively. So I've heard I've heard stories of both sides. With the
yeah,
church, there just seems to be a certain approach that
yeah,
they're sticking to,
yeah.
at least so far.
Right, yeah. I have a comment from Mayawa, who is actually a church leader, and she says she's concerned that we will lose a whole generation of potential converts by the hypocritical way that we handle issues like this. The world is watching, and we should take note. Mayawa,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Back in the
I'm
box.
sure there are some churches that are leading the way and doing it right. And I don't want to call it names. I know there was two responses that I saw to Busola Dakolo's story, that I thought
Yeah,
were appropriate. But of course, they didn't say anything about what had happened in their church or maybe how they approached it. But they did have like really encouraging responses towards her. But
yeah.
I want to hear from the victims because that's until that's when I know.
Until then,
When a victim tells me, "Hey, I went to my pastor and this is how he handled it and it was good," that's when I know for sure that we have a way forward.
that would be great. Talking about way forwards, I'm going to mention one or two issues about behavioral changes that happen to abuse people. This was raised by Fatih, our very good friend. Hey, Fatih, if you're watching. So Box Fatih is talking about something called compensation. She says some people, why did they? Oh yeah, all right, I have to wrap up. So why do some people compensate, change their behavior? And I'm going to try and understand what she's trying to say here. And I found out when I was studying the question that Fatih raised, why do people compensate? I found out there is something called survival mode. And I want to talk briefly about survival mode. If I'm talking and you recognize yourself, just put it in the comments. Survival mode. Survival mode, according to Michael Rosenthal, is a phase that helps you save your life, but it's not meant to be how you live. So sometimes when something happens to you a long time ago, hey Taiwo, um, you learn to cope. You can become a people pleaser or a caretaker because you're avoiding conflict and stress. You can become an observer because you want to create distance between yourself and having the responsibility to solve anybody's problem.
Right?
Maybe you learn to tiptoe around and not upset people. And you're still like that till today, even though the trauma has passed. Why are you living in survival mode? Maybe you started working extra hard. And so today you call yourself, oh, I'm independent, I'm hardworking. You're not hardworking. You learned a habit long ago and you haven't yet dropped it. But it's important to have that much inside about yourself. Let me give myself as an example. There's something I say about myself, and I just learned recently that it's just an adaptation. I used to tell myself that when I meet someone for the first time, my mind is so sharp that within 5 seconds, I've read their DNA and I know their life story. And it's true. I'm very quick to interpret people. On the one hand, it looks like a strength that helps me to go into relationships with pre-insight. On the other hand, it's just a defense mechanism. You know, when I was
Interesting.
a kid, I had to protect myself often from emotional situations. And I learned to kind of prepare myself and get ready. Okay, what is this person likely to do? What are they about? Study them. And over time, I grew
Right.
so adept at predicting people that nowadays, if I meet you in 5 seconds, I know your life story just by looking. Yeah, it looks cool, but it's not cool. I need to stop being in that survival mode. Not everybody's trying to kill me. Some people are
That's
just being,
true.
they're just human beings. Why is my adrenaline always pumping? Why am I always trying
Good point.
to
The
survive?
hypervigilance. The
And
hypervigilance.
here's the thing,
Yeah.
hypervigilance. If you pump all your energy into hypervigilance and survival, you have less energy left to be the beautiful person that you're put on this earth to
And
be.
it's very stressful on your body. Very
It
stressful on
is.
the body, on the immune
It
system.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
I think we're coming to the tail end of our time.
yes, we are. We are. So I'm going to skip the rest of survival mode. It's a fun topic, and I want us to close with and say goodbye to our fans, Sade, with the last thing in my box. Shall I show you? You want to see the
Oh, it's
last thing
not
in
a
my box?
rabbit.
Well, it's not yet. It's yellow paper. And it has questions or comments about what are the signs that I am becoming self aware? How do I know that I'm growing emotionally? Shadi.
Wow. That's a really good question.
Box is empty. Oh. Nothing inside again.
Signs that you're becoming self aware. Okay. I think
Yeah.
one huge sign is you'll find yourself sort of like in an acceptance mode. You'll notice something about
Right.
yourself and it won't freak you out. You
Hmm.
won't. I remember when I used to ask myself, I used to say things like this in my head: "What's wrong with you? What is wrong?" I would just ask myself that question, like, "What was wrong with me?" I would do something, and I would ask myself, "What was wrong with me that I did that?" Or I'd feel a certain way, and I would just be like,
Hmm.
"Shake it off. What's wrong with you?" But what happens is when you become more self-aware, you're like, "Oh, I'm feeling shame. This is why."
Hmm.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You don't. It's not comfortable, but at least you're aware and you accept that you're in that journey and you can see why you're feeling the way you feel. You also be able to
Ah.
start naming your emotions a little bit better. I'm angry, I'm
Ah.
sad, I'm numb,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel shame, I feel
Yeah.
anxious.
Yeah.
You basically you're getting to know yourself in a way you've never known yourself before because you've never paid that attention to yourself because you've been running from yourself the whole
Yeah.
time. I
Yeah.
know you talked about dreams were a sign, the changes in dreams, changes in sleep patterns
Yeah.
can be a sign that hey, I'm dealing with the deep
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah.
there's that. But I think self acceptance is a huge sign. Like hey, I'm
Yeah.
human.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect, and I've had
Yeah.
things happen to me that have changed me, and that's
Yeah.
okay because I can work on those things.
Yeah, great. That sounds positive. And as we run through the closing point, I'm just going to share with you guys three kind of three-step process of looking at yourself and knowing that I'm growing. I'm now more self-aware. Self-awareness is just the most amazing thing you can do as an adult.
Yeah,
Honestly, yeah, Shade agrees with me
I
on that.
agree.
Three steps, three stages that you need to look at: short term, medium term, long term. Am I changing? Am I becoming a better person? In the short term, if you're becoming more self aware, not just because you've been through abuse, but just generally as a human being, you might notice that, excuse me, that patterns are breaking. So before you may have had particular eating habits, for instance, there were compensations like overeating and stuff like that, weight habits, sleep habits. Some people can't sleep. If that suddenly shifts and you find that your sleep becomes more wholesome, it may be a sign
Right.
that something is changing inside you. Nightmares, Sade, you mentioned it. Let me just quickly use myself as an example. From the age of 6, 10, thereabouts as a child, there are particular nightmares I had regularly all the time, all the way to my adulthood. I'll mention at least two features, and I'm saying this because I want other people to introspect. My nightmares usually contain darkness. Most of my dreams would, well, I call them nightmares, just the dreams actually. Most of my dreams happen in places where there was no lights on, in a dark room, a dark house. And another one of my regular nightmares involved, or dreams actually involved, seeing a scary animal like a lion. Oh, Jesus, man! And when I see this animal, it's unusual because in other dreams, when something bad happens to me as a Christian, I have things I say and do to help myself. But in this particular situation, I'm frozen and paralyzed with fear. It was through therapy and talking with you that I figured out that those dream patterns were tied to particular moments in my childhood. And until I became aware of them, I began to break them. They kept coming. But as soon as you talked me through and I snapped out of that, those dreams have ended. Now, you don't know how healing it feels to be able to have dreams that are full of light and there are no lions creeping about. Amazing.
It's definitely, yeah,
Um,
I can definitely relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you changing in the medium term? Do you have depressive habits that you notice that they are changing? Social anxiety, and other compensatory things. Then in the long term, are your relationship with your significant other, are they improving? Are your communications with people who have hurt you changing? What about sexual situations? If you're in a sexual relationship, are you improving sexually? Are you able to let go, submit, or be vulnerable, or just enjoy sex? It's important. I know we don't talk about sex, but forgive me. Um, Choices you make, and I like to end on this point, and I should have said it earlier. It has to do with the survival mode thing. Some of us, because we're afraid of something, of a place we're coming from, we begin to reenact the survival mode with every new person we meet. So you think everybody's going to hurt you the way that person
Right.
hurt you.
Right.
So you make yourself closed and not vulnerable. So when you meet your ideal partner who loves you and wants to take care of you, because relating with that person would require you to open up and be vulnerable, You reject them and you close off. Ah, no, if I open up, they might hurt me. And that's how you miss all your ideal partners. At the same time, you tend to incline yourself to people who are the opposite of ideal. So people who don't need you to be vulnerable or emotional or healthy, who
Right.
just want to abuse
Right.
you. You open yourself to them.
Yeah,
So you
because
see
that
how
feels
this becomes
comfortable.
cycles. Yeah. And that's why you need to be self-aware and ask yourself, why am I this way? Why do I do the things I do? And snap out of it so that you can enjoy your life and be the best person that you're supposed to be. Shadi?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Way to go. I love it.
I felt like I did a sprint there.
You did an amazing job.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's time to say goodbye for this week.
Yeah.
And then we'll be back Tuesday about the same time. And we'll definitely put up a notice this time ahead of time because I think we're getting into a cadence Tuesday and Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. If you enjoyed our show, let us know. Put a
please
comment there.
like, share, and leave a comment.
And
Please.
share this on your page so other people can know that there is something to look forward to.
All
Yeah.
right, my friend.
Hey, Shadi, thanks. Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you.
To all our lovely people, Gerard, Sheye, Wasim, Dayo, who else did I see there? Professor Austin, um, yeah, everybody. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you very much. Until next week.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.